Welcome to the Securely Yours podcast, brought to you by your very own cyber agony aunts. Me, Amelia Hewitt.
And me, Rebecca Taylor.
We're here to tackle the most pressing questions that arise throughout your cyber career and share some insights from our new book, Securely Yours.
Think of us as your very own mentors, confidants and cheerleaders. Your agony aunts for surviving your career. Well, we're back again. Can you believe it? Number 3.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, team. So, Amelia, do you want to fill everyone in on what's been going on with you this week?
So, literally, just as we sat down to have this conversation, I've just had a signed statement of work. The biggest piece of work I've done for a client yet. So I am thrilled about that. But I have actually been in Slovenia this week. Had a really lovely time there. Went to Ljubljana. Questions around how that is actually pronounced, but we'll go with that. Went to Lake Bled. It trucked it down the whole time, but I obviously was able to get my hood down for an Instagram picture. But it was lovely. It was a really nice place. The food was incredible. Every meal we had was really good. But that has nothing to do with cyber. I would just highly recommend it as a place to go. Now, I saw, because I got tagged in it on LinkedIn randomly, that you have had quite an exciting week as well.
Yeah, so I'm very lucky in my role that I get to know lots of fabulous journalists, and one of them is called Nicole Deslanders. And what was really lovely is the first time we met is that we're both University of Portsmouth kids. Oh. So it was really lovely that we both resonated. And in essence, she reached out around International Women's Day stuff to ask if I'd be up for doing an interview. So I seized my moment and I'm really chuffed it came out. So it's in Tech Informed and it's under a bracket called Tech Inspired. And yeah, it was an amazing opportunity. Absolutely terrifying because you're suddenly like, oh gosh, it's a journalist. I mean, I was speaking to a different journalist as well last week and they went, do you mind if this goes on record? I was like, I've never been asked that question before.
I've never been on record.
That sounds absolutely terrifying. But I'm really, really chuffed with it. And actually,
congratulations.
I think it shines a light on the role I do. I think I come across nice and I'm proud of it.
Oh, I'm so proud of you. And the book got a cheeky plug as well, I saw.
It did, cheeky.
So, this week aside, this episode we are going to focus on personal adversity. Now, I just want to say, before we get into this, some of the topics that we are going to cover, as we have done in the book, are quite heavy, quite hard-hitting, and some may feel quite close to home. So if you need to turn this off, take a breather, it's always going to be here for you to come back to. And please know that within the book and online there are resources and people you can reach out to if these are bringing up negative emotions. Disclaimer aside. So, as I mentioned, personal adversity. I am going to read to you what we have written in the book to introduce the topic of personal adversity, because I think it's really important for us to actually understand what it is and how it might affect us. A challenge can appear anytime, anywhere, and to anyone, but we all typically manage to overcome them and move on to the next. Adversity, however, is a situation you have no choice but to face, even when every fibre of your being wants to run and hide. It can be painful, soul-destroying, limiting. For some, adversity can be the final hurdle of a long road of challenges, and then they choose to walk away. For others, adversity is the trigger to identify the challenge and therefore the next step in taking positive action to enact change.
Oh, Powerful stuff.
So, diving straight into it, we try to be as authentic as we can. So, Rebecca, please, if you are comfortable, can you share an example of adversity you faced throughout your career in cyber?
So, the biggest one I think that I faced was earlier on in my career, and it's when I stepped away and had my first child. So before I left the cyber industry, before that gap, I knew who I was. I knew my identity.
Yeah.
I knew what my schedule looked like. I had a career vision. And then suddenly, obviously I chose to have a child, but everything was different. And I felt really lonely and I was exhausted. My daughter was a poorly baby, so lots of doctor's trips and that kind of stuff. But I didn't realise at the time, but I had postnatal depression. And that wholeheartedly knocked my socks off. I try to be a very positive person. I try to lift others up. But to be that unhappy and that alone was awful. And it manifested in lots of different ways, in not looking after myself, in dark thoughts, in dark behaviours. And so it was only my mum coming with me to the GP because I just wasn't coping that meant that I was able to get the support, but I needed someone to help me get that, because I think I'd reached this belief that what I was feeling was normal and that I was supposed to be unhappy because having a baby is really hard, when actually what I was going through wasn't right. How that impacted my cybersecurity career is when I went back, I was still going through therapy. I was still medicated. I was still having wobbles because I don't think you can just switch off any form of depression. It's part of who you are and it adds to your story and your experience. And so I had to be very transparent with my leadership when I went back that I'd had a lovely baby, but I wasn't very well and I was sad and I was struggling. Fortunately, I had a leader that got it. I could step out to go and have my counselling sessions, no questions asked. I didn't have to say when I was going. I didn't have to update them unless I wanted to. But I think there are a lot of people struggling, particularly in the cybersecurity industry, with mental health and mental well-being. So I suppose that then leads into my career pathway now of I work a lot with mental health organisations. I try to be there for the females around me, particularly because I resonate with a lot that comes with being a female that follows the pathway of having kids and trying to juggle that career and all that good stuff. But yeah, I share this in the hope it resonates and that other individuals that are feeling that way, whether it be postnatal, depression, mental health struggles, that they know they're not alone.
I didn't want to sort of comment or interject during that because I found it so powerful. And thank you for sharing, because I can imagine that was a really dark time for you. And that's something that I feel so immensely proud as your friend that you're able to talk about and to discuss. And so on the topic of honesty, I think it's also fair I share an experience of adversity. And there are probably a few I could choose from because it's been quite a turbulent couple of years. But probably the most poignant, and one that actually the book is the first time I have ever publicly spoken about this, is my forays with chronic health issues. So I became very, very poorly at the end of December 2023. And through various testing, scanning, I found out that I had endometriosis and that the endo that I had was quite aggressive and was growing very quickly. For those of you who don't know what endometriosis is, it is growing of tissue within, I believe, the uterus, outside of that. So it can be anywhere in your body. It's usually around your reproductive organs and your pelvic organs. So for me, my ovaries were becoming absolutely taken over by these growths, and trying to juggle that, only being not even 6 months into doing my own thing, was treacherous, to say the least. The last year of my life has been a lot of appointments, a lot of testing, a lot of scanning. And then in November of last year, I was very lucky. I was offered to have surgery to remove the current growth and to investigate what was going on, which is quite unusual because a lot of women or individuals with endometriosis have to have the surgery to be diagnosed, but I had already been given a diagnosis because they could see it so clearly on a scan. So I had my surgery. I was so fortunate to have the people around me that I do, because I was running an organisation, running a non-profit. I was trying to do a million things, keep up with my education, and it knocked me for six. The whole experience was deeply traumatic. It was a very long surgery, and the recovery was really, really hard. So I am now 4 months into my recovery, and I'm very much still in recovery and still trying to manage having a career whilst looking after my health. And that is really hard. And that is something that I know that even if it's not through chronic health, there will be things that you as a listener can probably relate to with that. To see your body change and to feel that your body is not working how it should is horrible, and it's sad, and there is a lot of grief around that. But unfortunately, as the situation I was in, as a lot of people are in, you can't just put life on hold for these things. And so for me, it was really about leveraging the people that I had around me to be able to sustain day-to-day operations of the organisations that I work within, but also being able to build a life that was flexible enough to do the things I needed to do. So I am a very, very avid gym goer. Fitness is really important to me. I couldn't lift anything over my head of any weight for the first month. And so once I could do that, it was so important for me to get back into the gym and maintain my strength, because the physical trauma that your body goes through when you have such an invasive surgery it's hard. It's very hard to explain. And so I was very clear with those around me that I would need time to go to the gym. I would need to work a bit more flexible hours. I would also need time, as I have done for the last year, for scans, appointments, blood tests and things. And I've been really fortunate that those around me have been okay with that and have been supportive of that. But I know that that's not how it goes for a lot of people. I personally haven't ever really shared publicly how sick I was, because I think I saw it as a vulnerability, and I think a lot of women see it as a vulnerability. But actually, I think I'm at a point within my recovery now that I am aware that there are a lot of people that are feeling the same way, and I want to be able to say, it does get better. Whilst you're in it, it's horrendous. I thought, I'm never going to get better. What have I done? You know, I am going to have to live with endometriosis for the rest of my life. But my perception of it now is that I can't change that. I can only choose how I build my life around it and how I respond to it. And so that has been a massive recent blow to myself and my career. But I am here to say you can do it, and it is possible.
Oh, honey. You make me feel, you make me want to cry.
Rebecca has lived through it with me.
It's been really hard to watch, especially, I don't want to cry, especially because I do really love you very much. And it's really hard to see you struggle and see you poorly like that.
Yeah.
But I'm very proud of you, and I've got your back.
Thank you.
Loads of us do. We'll have your back, whatever you need. And I think that's bridging into the next bit, I guess. We're going to talk through some of the adversities that other people have chosen to share with us. And we're obviously going to share some feedback, some advice, but ultimately, please know that whatever you're going through, whatever that adversity is, that you're not alone. Please find your person, your tribe, your community, and just don't face it on your own.
Yeah.
Please.
I think there's so much emphasis, and actually this was a conversation I was having last night with a friend about some results I'd had back, and she said, you're so used to doing everything on your own and for yourself that it's so hard to ask those around you for some grace, some support, all of those things. And I think that's really true, and I've definitely felt so responsible for fixing the adversity in my life that inadvertently I've added more pressure to that. And so that's a really key thing I would say throughout is talk to people, reach out, even if it's just to vent. It's so important.
Yeah, it's okay to be vulnerable. It doesn't mean that you're not good at your job. It doesn't mean that you can't have a career, but it does mean that people understand and that people can support you.
Yeah.
Questions. So, oh God, I'm tired now. I feel all emotionally worn down.
Keep it upbeat throughout.
So, Amelia, I'm going to throw the first question at you. Again, for those listeners that are maybe new to this, this is not the typical vibe.
Where have you been?
Where have you been? So we're going to do it in an agony aunt style. So we've had some questions sent in to us, and we're going to try and provide some answers and some ideas and some advice. So the first question for Amelia. I've just had my first experience of a client refusing to work with me specifically because I'm a woman. I always knew this kind of bias existed in the industry, but experiencing it firsthand feels different. I'm struggling with a mix of anger and self-doubt. How do I process this emotionally whilst also maintaining my professionalism? Have others in cybersecurity faced this, and how did you handle it?
That is a fantastic question. And I actually talk about something similar happening to me in the book as part of the allyship section. So to probably talk about the most obvious thing first, others have faced this. This is unfortunately still going on even today. But when it happened to me, I was a very different woman. I was younger, I was a bit more naive, and I didn't necessarily know so overtly that was what was going on. I just had an individual that was consistently very difficult and rude to me and, effectively refusing to work with me without being so direct about it. So it certainly happens, and I'm sorry it's happening to you. I think it is obscene that these things happen now. You deserve to be treated fairly and equally, and that goes without saying, but please remind yourself of that. The key thing in my story when it comes to this is that it was documented. It actually got found out because a manager had seen an email whilst we were sitting having a conversation on my laptop of this person being foul towards me. And me now, if he'd have spoken to me like that now, it'd have been very different, let me tell you. But at the time, I just didn't think anything of it. And so having instances documented, even because it can be very challenging, especially when things happen over Teams, keeping a log of the time, the date, what was the meeting and what was said, even that, it's a bit harder when it comes to HR in order to prove things, but even that is evidence that you are documenting these things as they are happening, because you can use that to seek advice. It's so unfortunate that we don't just believe people when things happen. However, when it comes to certain processes, you do need to have evidence and you do need to document that. So where you can, document it. I wouldn't say once you've got, I would say start to talk about it as soon as you notice it happening, be it to a manager, a colleague, a friend, a parent. I think when it happened to me, I rang my dad. I just needed to talk to someone about it. And being able to get it off my chest meant that I wasn't alone in feeling that way. And when you are ready, being able to take that to a place where it can be escalated and actioned, because you shouldn't have to deal with that. An organisation that values you and values your contribution, irrespective of your gender, should not want to work with a client like that. And I know in my case, my organisation took it to the highest point they could at the client and said, you need to sort this out. It's sometimes a different dynamic when it's people within your own organisation, but key things, document it, talk to someone, and please know that that's not okay. And we most certainly should not be accepting that in this day and age.
I think the interesting vibe that I pick up from in this question is that the person already knows that that's wrong.
Yeah.
Where they've said they're feeling anger, they're feeling that self-doubt, and they know that it feels wrong. And actually, when we reflect on these kinds of adversities, I think a lot of people have that wobble of, is this okay? Should this be happening? So you really do have to trust your gut. Would you want your friend, for example, to be going through that? Or would you be going, hold on a second, that's not right?
Yeah.
Try and reflect it if you're not quite sure. But if something within you is going, this doesn't sit comfortably, this doesn't feel right, you are well within your rights to escalate that, to talk about that and share it, because you don't deserve to be treated differently. You don't deserve to be going through this. And actually your organisation should be supporting you. And if they don't, maybe that's a reflection on who you're working for to start with. Maybe that sows some other seeds of thought.
I guess the question around how do I process this emotionally is one that, whilst maintaining professionalism, is one that I didn't really touch upon. And probably maybe if I put it to you, Rebecca, because I feel that when I went through it, I took it immensely personally. And I was young and I probably cried and I was probably very upset and disheartened. But I guess you know, as an adult and as someone with a lot of emotional maturity, how would you suggest someone... I say that like I'm not an adult and I don't have
like
emotional
a pensioner
maturity.
over here.
But how do you encourage someone to work through that? Because I actually don't think I have lived experience of doing that in an effective way, because it really did impact me.
And I think it's valid for it to hurt and for you to find it offensive or upsetting. And I think the first place to start with that is by taking a step back and processing those emotions. Document them down, write them down, own them, because you're entitled to be hurt by other people's behaviour. That is okay. I think the way to maintain that professionalism is to remember that this is organisational versus personal. This isn't someone potentially talking about you as in relation to your home life or in relation to how you bring up your kids or in relation to your faith. This is, in this case, it feels like to do with your work and your role. Yeah. And this is where your work or your organisation needs to have your back and be supporting you with it. So there isn't necessarily the best way to emotionally handle it, but it's an element of sitting down and allowing yourself to feel the way you feel, and then leveraging the right mechanisms around you to deal with that. Don't just accept it, because you don't have to.
No, I think that's completely correct. And I hope that in sharing our experiences, it, at least, if anything, helps you understand that this is a very real problem we have. I don't think it's exclusive to cybersecurity.
No, me neither.
At all. Okay, moving on then. This next question, Rebecca, I feel that you could have sent in yourself. But you obviously didn't, because it's a question for you.
Don't dob me in.
No, definitely not. So, this person says, I have been with my cybersecurity firm for a long time now. And while I feel that it's time for me to move to new opportunities, I am deeply concerned about how my departure might impact people I care about. I don't want to let people down, and I'm also feeling uncertain about stepping into the unknown.
Oh, I feel that one. It sounds like this person is very connected to their team, connected to their work, and obviously cares about them. So again, how you feel is valid. And I think it's totally normal to feel anxiousness about the unknown, especially when you've been somewhere for a really long time.
Yeah.
Stepping out of your career where you know how it looks and feels, you know the energy, you know the people, you're like, oh yeah, I know who to speak to for that. And then going somewhere which is brand new. That's hard for anyone, regardless of what industry you're in. What I will say is that it's okay if you did find a new role and you handed in your notice and your team were a bit gutted. They were like, oh, we're really going to miss you.
Well, it shows they cared about you.
Yeah, they cared about you. You did a good thing. But the line in the sand is if they then start to treat you differently. Because the purpose of us all in industry and us all learning and developing is so that at some point we can progress and we can move on and we can find a new role or whatever that success looks like for us. So actually, if you did hand in your notice and your leader or your team started to treat you actually in a negative way, first off, that's a reflection on them, but that's not normal. And you shouldn't be having to worry about that in terms of moving on in career progression.
No.
So I suppose if someone is that unhappy, it's not your problem. It's kind of a chin up to them. Be miserable, be mean, because I'm off. And I know that's really hard to get to that frame of mind, but you're moving on for a reason and you're wanting more for a reason. So if people can't be happy for you, chin up to them. Is my advice, I suppose.
Yeah, and I wonder if sometimes that can come from a bit of jealousy.
Yeah.
I think we've all certainly been there where we've seen someone in our team thrive and we think, oh, but I want to do that and I should do that. And sometimes, whilst we don't intend to, that can come across in our actions. And so I sometimes think, it can be a mixture of the grief of losing a colleague that you care about, but also the fact that they might just see you progressing and feel a bit left behind.
Yeah. And again, that happens. That totally happens. But own it, do it, go and get that role. It's okay for you to move on. We spend time mentoring and developing each other. People become people managers so they can nurture those teams. So those individuals within can be something more if they want to be. So I'd say Own those choices, be proud of your accomplishments, hand in your notice if you are wiggling on, and be proud of yourself for getting that, because you have just got a new job and people should be happy for you.
No, for sure. And it's a challenging one for me to comment on because I've not done the whole stay for a long time in an organisation, and that's just not how my career path has looked. But I can remember a manager earlier in my career saying to me, you leaving is a sign that I've done my job.
Yeah, completely.
Because they have got you from where you were when you started, and they have supported in shaping you into the professional that you have become now that you're ready for the next step. And so I think sometimes considering how you frame those conversations can be, I think when I did my first resignation, it was a good job I was close with my boss, because I probably sat there shaking like a leaf going, I'm really sorry, I'm leaving. But actually, in other jobs I've resigned from, I've made a point to emphasise how much I've learned and growth, and specifically been able to give examples. And I've almost like pre-planned that conversation.
Yeah.
Because it does kind of help to sort of, it's the compliment sandwich thing. It say something nice, say the thing you don't want to tell them that they're not going to like, and then say something nice. And I think that's a great technique in, sort of social science more than anything.
I think the first time I handed my notice in, and it wasn't in cybersecurity, I wrote this hugely apologetic letter and be like, I'm so sorry I'm leaving. It's not because I don't like you. I'm really, really sorry.
Honestly, I'll let you in on a little secret. My mum wrote my first resignation letter.
Honey.
Because I didn't, no one tells you how to do those things. And, quite often the formality is that they don't really get read. They just get sent to HR to formalise the process. But it's just strange, isn't it?
It's an uncomfortable topic. But ultimately, people should be happy for you. Yes, it's a bit gutting, but they should be happy that you've accomplished something that you wanted. And if they're not, chin up, my love. They'll be okay. Maybe they're not the right people for you, but you can carry on and go smash your career somewhere else.
Onwards and upwards.
Onwards and upwards. So, we're going to do the last question for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope everyone's not at home like, oh, this is so deep. So, Amelia, this one is for you. And it definitely resonates, actually. So, I work in a high-pressure environment where my team relies on me heavily. I've recently been dealing with a serious health issue, but I don't know how to tell my team. I just want to continue doing my job without being seen as a liability. How can I approach this conversation in a way that maintains trust and professionalism whilst also setting boundaries around how I want to be treated?
Did I write this? I do actually, one thing I will say is I do like that these questions have more context.
Yes.
Because I feel that it's easier to comment on something when you know more about it.
Yes.
So yeah, firstly, I feel that on a very visceral level, because despite the fact that I am self-employed, I still do work within organisations where I do have to tell them that these things are going on. I was quite upfront about what was going on with me because there was a time that I was being tested for a lot of very, very serious illnesses and conditions, and it had a huge impact on my mental health. I was absolutely terrified, and I think that was I think that showed in how I showed up at work and in socialising and things. And so I would certainly encourage being upfront, and I know that can feel really unnatural, but people can't support you if they're not aware that something's going on. And so for me, being upfront meant that I could take time out to go to appointments. I could miss meetings if I needed to, if I was really not feeling well. I can remember having a endo flare-up where I missed quite an important team day last year, but because they knew about it, I wasn't just springing it on the night before, But with that, there needs to be trust.
Yeah.
So you have to go to someone you trust to talk about that. And often it has to be a management figure from a logistics point of view, but making them aware, you don't have to give specifics, but making them aware of what is happening can mean that they can be there for you in some of the more practical elements of it. I think how you approach that conversation is very, very personal. I think I called my client and I explained what had been going on. And I explained the impact it was having on me, because I think that's the key part, is for people to understand, okay, what does this mean practically? Especially, so like something like endometriosis is very poorly understood generally and in medicine. And so trying to explain what that actually meant and, you know, scientifically, like, it wasn't beneficial. But what was beneficial was being able to go to that conversation and say, this is what I'm going through. This is how it's impacting me, and this is what I need.
Exactly that.
So yeah, you know, if you choose to share, set out exactly what you need to set out. But ultimately, it takes a lot of bravery. And I don't like that with chronic illness, there is this whole spirit of being a warrior and being brave. You shouldn't have to be brave. You shouldn't have to go through it in the first place. But if you do, I would definitely say, you know, sometimes you've just got to have that hard conversation, because there will be benefits for you. There will be support where you need it, be it emotional or be it through things like, you know, your employee assistance programs, or through just purely having someone to be there for you. I know when I had my surgery, I had several colleagues text me, like, on my personal number, who I didn't even expect to have remembered when it was, to ask how it had gone. Like, that goes such a long way. And so in setting your boundaries, you probably have to first do some reflection around what you need and what you want in order to be able to communicate that to others.
Yeah. And I think, again, that all makes a lot of sense, and it's easy to take away as such and create an action plan around. I would say, if you don't feel you can talk one-on-one with your manager, not all of us can. You can talk to an ally. You can have people come along with you to meetings that can help you express what you want to say. Having it written down can sometimes, just a bullet pointed list can help you direct exactly the way you want that conversation to go. But it's also for you to own, like Amelia said, exactly what you need. It's not for your organisation to thrust upon you, okay, you've got this, so you must want that.
Yeah.
It's for you to say, what workplace adjustments do you require? What adaptations maybe to your work environment do you need?
Yeah.
And you to share that, because it's not for them to thrust all the policies and procedures on you if they're not applicable and if you just don't want that.
No. And I suppose the other side of it is sort of, what advice can I give, having gone through it, to people that are perhaps management figures or HR, where they have people coming to them with these things. And the first and maybe most important thing I would say is, we're not expecting you to get it. I don't need you to get it. And, you know, I think we want to be able to relate to people. And that is a good way to build trust with people, is relatability. Mm-hmm. But the person going through that doesn't need you to say, I know how you're feeling, because you probably don't.
Yeah.
But what that person needs is for you to ask them what they want. What can you do? And I think we see this with allyship as well, is that we often put a lot of onus onto the victim of a situation to say how to fix it, but there's not always an opportunity to do that. And so by giving people the space to say, what can we do to help you? What would make you feel more comfortable? What are boundaries you have? And being able to formalise that, I would say, is incredibly crucial.
So listen, ask, do not assume. I think that's the key takeaways, really.
Yeah.
So, I think that's us wrapped up with this one.
I know. I mean, lots of hard questions today. And I know for us, sitting here, a few glassy-eyed moments, but it feels very cathartic, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it feels nice. I mean, for me, this is the first time I'm talking about this in such a open way, and it's nice because I know that there will be at least one other person listening to this.
I'm proud of you, because I know it's not easy.
Resonate. But as we said at the top of this episode, if you do need support, there are organisations out there such as Mind or the Samaritans, and there are people who are ready and willing to listen and to support you. And if you're not comfortable with that, please talk to someone in your life, someone who can just be an ear for you. But please do remember, as we said, adversity is rough, and while some people can tackle that wall straight on. For others, it really can be a breaking point, and it has been for the two of us. And quite funnily, during this record, Rebecca got a call from the school and I got an alarm to take some medication. So
we're living it, people.
It's just a part of life now for us. But surround yourself with love, please, and support, and be kind to yourself. Life is a bit crap at times. And I think doing what you need to do to get through can sometimes just be enough when these things happen. We talk so much about success and achievement, but sometimes a bit of rest, maybe therapy, exercise, small tasks are just okay.
Yeah, it's okay to do enough to just get today done. You don't have to have conquered the world or solved cybersecurity. You can just do what you need to do and then just take those breaks, look after yourself. And like Amelia said, please be kind to yourself. Please stop beating yourself up.
Yeah. If you have any other questions relating to adversity or even another topic, please send them across to us and we will do our best to reply or even maybe cover in a future episode. Thank you so much for listening.
Speak to you soon, team.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support, please share it with others or post about it on social media using the hashtag CyberAgonyAunts.
If you'd like to hear more from us, remember to grab our book, Securely Yours, An Agony Aunt's Guide to Surviving Cyber, available on Amazon.
Finally, a big thank you to Matinee Multilingual for bringing this pod vision to life. Keep smiling, keep shining, and we'll see you next time on the Securely Yours podcast.